Hi, good evening to our Sustainability Committee members who are here tonight, as well as the public who are watching this later, in addition to our Board of Trustee Liaison, Trustee Fisher. Tonight is our October Sustainability Committee meeting, so I'm just going to start off with some few housekeeping items. So just to give you all an idea and updates on some of the things we discussed at our last meeting, and it was only a couple of weeks ago. But in terms of Rye Hills Park, as just a quick refresher, then going over this with Bridget, that we had a student who reached out to us from Blindbrook wanting to revitalize the butterfly garden. So what Chris and I are trying to do, again, there's no guarantee it's going to work, of course. But we do have a new grant writer that the village the company's called Millennium Strategies that we brought on a few months ago. So we're looking at potential grant opportunities. There's one in mind to see if we can potentially win a grant to cover some of the costs, because it's not going to be cheap. But that's the update I have on that. So in terms of the food composting, or site, from that last meeting with the food composters, those whatever, do you think there's the Maestro and the FC30 is the proper name for those models? So Chris and I have a follow-up meeting with Kazia, who gave the presentation on Monday. So if any of our members here, or those who are watching this later, or if any members of the public have any questions that are concerns to address, as always, again, feel free to shoot me an email or reach out to me or the village as a whole, and we'll be happy to address it in our follow-up meeting. And then I just want to talk about our next seed exchange that we'll be having October 29th. I'll let Bridget discuss that a little more in details, but the last one we had was also at the Portchester Rybrook Library, as will this one. And it was a huge success last time, so I just want to give Bridget an opportunity to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, so we're having the seed exchange again the 29th of this month. So that's the weekend right before Halloween. We thought maybe we're thinking about other activities we can do, like having kids decorate the seed packets and things like that. That's still on the works. But the things that have been decided are, the library had said yes, that we can use the outdoor space. We also have the opportunity to be able to use the indoor space if it rains. So it's going to be a rain or shine event. And we have the posters, so we're going to start pushing those out on social media, and people can bring their own seeds, or even if they don't have seeds, they can come and get things for free. A lot of people weren't able to bring anything last time, but we gave out a lot of seeds. So I think it was really helpful in spreading the word about healthy yards, our gardening programs, and the importance of not using pesticides and planting for pollinators. So hopefully this event will be just as popular as the last one. I'm hoping it can be outside, because I think a lot of people that came last time, I think it was about half people that had planned to be there, and about half people that had stopped because they saw it and they were like, oh, what's that? Let me walk over, because the library is in a really good spot for pedestrian traffic. So yeah, that's pretty much it as of right now. It is in partnership with the Portchester Sustainability Committee. We are going to be doing a leaf mulching demonstration, actually, as long as we can do it outside. Of course, we can't do that inside. But Kiki from Portchester Sustainability, she's going to be bringing some of her own leaves and her lawnmower to demonstrate to people how to leaf mulch. We're going to have a table. I'm going in a couple days. This Saturday? No, Sunday. This Sunday, I'm going to go to the Healthy Yards Seed Exchange. I think it's in Katona. I don't remember which city it's in around here, but I'm going there. I talked with the person that runs it, and she's going to give us some educational materials to hand out again. She's also going to give us a bunch of extra seeds. So that'll be nice, because those were well received by people last time, because they have nice images, and they tell people how to leaf mulch and the different native plants that you can plant for this area. So hopefully I'll be able to collect a lot of that, and then we can put that on a separate table for people to access and use. And I think that's about it for that event. But yeah, we have posters in English and Spanish. If anybody wants some to hang up, put places, feel free. I can email everyone with those posters.
Can you confirm the time for the seed exchange?
Yeah, it's 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Thank you, Bridget. And again, thank you to the library again as well for allowing us to utilize their space to hold a second event. So much appreciation to them for that. Just one more thing that I forgot. So in terms of the food composting models that I talked about just a few minutes ago, so that's another opportunity where we're looking at grants as well as to cover it. So for those who were on last meeting, that we had Administrator Bradbury on, he talked about some of the kind of kinks that we're trying to work out in terms of some of the ethical concerns of us just buying them from the company themselves. So we are looking at an avenue there to work out ethical concerns as well as looking at grants to cover the cost, and potentially, hopefully, if it works out, then maybe we could have both Cassia and her boss come down to do a demo for anyone who's interested in learning how these machines work, as well as anyone who may be interested in buying them. And just one more thing before we get into our leaf blower talk, Debbie, if you can just talk to the group a little bit about the dates you have for the compost tour, just in and what they told you, and just we'll discuss it here, of course, between the members that we have, and we'll discuss it through email among the members who are not here.
So I talked to them at Compost Ed. They'd be happy to have us come in and tour. We can, it's up to us whether we want to go as a sustainability committee first, whether we want to go and invite our electeds to come with us. I think it would be great if they were interested and if they did come with us. At this point in time, I think October is probably out. So we are looking at mid-November is really the earliest that they could have us. It's outside. So they'll go through mid-December, but I would say, the sooner the better in terms of us being able to do that. The tour itself takes about 45 minutes. It's hands-on. It should actually be a lot of fun. I have actually been wanting to get up there, so I think it should be really interesting for all of us. The purpose behind this facility is to really provide education. It's a functioning composting facility, but it is designed also to provide education so that municipalities and perhaps smaller institutions can build their own composting sites. So it's kind of showing you don't need as much space as you might think you need, and how you could do it basically in your own backyard, which is why I think it would be great for the trustees to join us. They're generally weekday hours. So I think what I needed, to hear from the committee really is, do we have, I don't know people's workday schedules. I don't know whether people are available, if we did something first thing in the morning, if we tried to do a lunch hour, if we did, let's say, a 4 p.m. at the end of the day, if that would be easier. I don't know, again, what everybody else's commitments are. So I think we just need to survey the committee, get a feel for what time of day might be best, and then we can go back to them and pick a date if people are interested. We also had talked about opening it up to the Portchester Sustainability Committee as well. We have a few people in Harrison that just happens to be the district that Nancy represents, who might be interested in attending. We have a maximum pretty much about 25 people, because after that it gets a little bit unwieldy for them, and they do want it to be hands-on. So even if it's all of us and our trustees, we still have room to extend the invite if we choose to. So that's kind of my update.
Perfect.
So for the people that are here, are you available during the week, daytime hours? And if so, is there any particular time of day that would work? Obviously, this particular date makes a difference because people's calendars may change day to day, but does anybody at least have input now to let me know, to give me a feel for at least a few of us?
Yeah, usually I am available during weekdays since I work from home. I mean, typically I like to do things either morning or like later in the day instead of like in the middle of the day, because then it just breaks up my schedule too much. So either one of those would usually be fine with me, as long as I don't have something else planned for the day.
Okay, and Ashley and Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I can work around, I too work from home, so I can work around whatever time works for the group.
Mornings will be better for me, but my schedule's a little weird.
All I can say is remote work has its advantages. In prior years, people would say, absolutely not, I can't do it. So, all right,
Debbie,
so
do you know what the latest is? Like what the latest time they have is? Do they close at 5 or?
My guess it would be like 4 o'clock, and then it's going to get dark,
Okay.
right? Because we're talking about November already. So I would probably say 4 o'clock would be the latest. And I think if we were to do it in the morning, we wouldn't do it before 9 a.m.
Okay, so maybe then 4 p.m. would probably be better for me anyways, than doing like 9 or whatever. So I would lean towards that, but again, I'm flexible, like Michael said, I'm
Okay.
flexible, so.
Okay, so we have one leaning toward the morning and one leaning toward the end of the day. And, Greg, perhaps we can go out with the poll to the rest of the committee.
Yes, and I'll
and
do that
ask
hopefully
them.
tomorrow.
And yeah, if we could just do that and get a feel, then I can come back with some dates for that particular time of day, or we can maybe have some options for 4 o'clock on this day, 9 o'clock, and then whichever time period works for most of us, we can go with that. And would you also extend the invite to assuming that the committee agrees, to our village manager and our trustees and see if they are interested in joining? Okay,
We're very fortunate to have one right here with us. So I guess
I
we
know.
can. Trustee Fisher, if you're at your laptop, would this be something you'd be interested in? And if so, is there any particular time that works best for you?
Hi, guys. Sorry. Yes, it's definitely something that I think we'd be interested in. Wait, what timing were we talking about? Sorry.
That's what we're trying to
Well,
kind of figure out.
we have a vote for, first thing in the morning before the work, like 9 o'clock. It's not really before the workday, but something 9:30 in the morning, so that we go up there, we have that, and then people get on with their day. And we also have a suggestion toward the end of the day at about 4 p.m. so that we can do it at the end of a workday. I think we'll have to go with whatever works for most people, but do you have a sense on the board of what their daytime schedules are, and whether one might work better than the other?
I would say, I mean, it really just depends. Maybe afternoon, just because, I know Jason, he works. I mean, a lot of people work, obviously. I feel like the afternoon, I could put it out there and see, but I feel like afternoons would probably be better for everybody. I know David for sure. Susan's iffy, lately. She's been taking care of her dad in Long Island, so she's not always around. And Sal also, I feel like. So I would say afternoon.
Right. So I'll go back to them and see. Actually, there is availability. There was when I spoke to them. This is a few days ago already. For the week of the 25th, but I think that's just too soon to plan something like next week. It's already next week, I think. All right, so let's plan mid-November. What I will do is I will ask for a few options for end of day and come back to the committee and the trustees with the dates. In the meantime, Greg, if you'll just poll the rest of the people, you will get some dates and we'll see what works for the majority of us. And, they're willing, they would love to have people come in. So if we split up into 2 groups, that would be fine as well. It just, I would feel better if we didn't go there with 3 people. If they're going to take time to host us, it would be nice if we could get, a few more people than, 3 or 4 of us to go out. I'm sure they would do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I totally agree, Debbie. And again, my schedule is flexible too. Again, because Chris will be happy to. And I'm sure this is something that Chris will actually want to join me for. So
terrific. So I'll follow up and I will get back to you, Greg, with some dates.
okay, sounds good. Okay, that's it in terms of housekeeping items, unless there's anything else anyone wants to bring up before we get to leaf blowers. Okay, then so that's where we'll lead off next. So again, so we had a very lengthy, but again, I feel is a very productive conversation 2 weeks ago. But again, whoever wants to start off in terms of where we want to pick off from where we left off, I will leave that floor open to any one of you.
Where were you? I know we were talking about this before. So we were talking about how the dates, phasing in. I have my notes here. Hold on 1 second. And then expanding. Okay, so expanding after we teach more about mulching, but we're thinking about doing I think honestly that we have to do a mailer. That's kind of my perspective on it. Not that I like to waste paper, like hopefully we can use recycled paper or something, but I think there's just a lot of people in the village that aren't going to get the message unless we send out a mailer. So I feel like there needs to be at least one mailer, just to notify everyone and then to give people the ideas of like alternatives at the same time, like make it something that's positive, not just like, oh, you can't do this. It's like, no, you can do this. Like these are the alternatives, and this is what we're trying to do, you know. So I think there needs to be maybe one mailer and then also like the email and stuff. But I know a lot of people, they don't check the email, they don't check Facebook or whatever, so they'll probably never see it until somebody like tells them, hey, you know, you're not supposed to be doing that, and they're probably like, what? So I do think that might be an essential part of the education campaign, is getting something out there in that sort of way too.
Bridget, can I just interrupt you? I'm sorry for 1 second. You know, when we were trying to promote the composting, we set up tables at a lot of the local events, you know, like Fall Fest, like the Halloween in the park thing. Have you thought about maybe doing that also, just to get it out there? Because whenever people see a booth at an event, they always want to stop by and see what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think we're always interested in having some sort of table at those events. I know in the past, the only thing that's held us up is just not having enough people available to like volunteer to man a table. But depending on like when the next event is, yeah, we'd love to do that. And I know at the Seed Exchange, like I mentioned, Kiki is doing a leaf mulching demonstration. So we could always do that as well, other places, to show people, you know, how you leaf mulch and give people that sort of education on what to do next.
Right. And, you know, I mean, I feel like it's kind of late. I think Fall Fest is next weekend, but we could always reach out to Cindy Zoll at the high school, because I know my daughter is volunteering at Fall Fest. You know, she's gotten a lot of kids to volunteer for other things. So that's also an option. If you think that we could get something together, we can see if she has any extra volunteers, because they get community service.
Okay.
When is Fall Fest?
I think it's next weekend though. That's the only
And
thing. But they're
at
it's
the
at
school?
Ridge Street School. But there's also that Halloween in the, you know, the dog Halloween thing, which is what is that, the 29th, Greg? At Pine Ridge Park?
I'll have to
And even
double
if you
check. It's
can't make
either
that,
29th or, yeah, I think it's also the 29th.
I mean, even
Yeah,
if we
from
could
her,
make
yeah.
that, we could do any other event too.
Right.
So, you know, even if it's not fall related, we could always just, like you said, go to the dog event or whatever and just have a
Right.
table.
But that's right. And you know how every year we always think of ideas for the birthday party. I mean, I know it's obviously not fall, but that could be something to think about too.
Okay.
I'll look
Well,
up when the Fall Fest is.
Are we talking about general information about leaf mulching and that type of thing, or are we talking about actually the ban? Because there isn't a ban in place yet for leaf blowers.
No, I
So-
think you want to create awareness about leaf mulching, right? Isn't that what we were just talking about?
I
What you were
just
talking
wanted
about a
to-
flyer?
Clarify.
I think that.
Yeah.
I think you need to make people aware that it's an option first.
Okay.
Yeah, no, yeah. And then once the ban is actually in place, then we can do both at the same time, you know, informing people of the restriction and informing people at the same time of how to get rid of the leaves through mulching and things like that. So, but yeah, for at first, of course, we don't want to tell people something that's not actually done yet, because then they'll probably be like, what, and no, it's not here yet. So, but yeah, the Fall Fest, so we can see maybe in the email, where we pull people about the compost seal. So if anybody's interested, I already know I'm out that weekend because my husband is having surgery. So I have to do that with him, unfortunately, but that's on the 21st, he's having that. So, but if anybody else would want to volunteer, I could create materials and get the materials from Healthy Yards, because I know they have some leaf mulching handouts So hopefully I can grab some of those.
I likewise, I cannot commit to these October weekends right now. Too much going on, but going forward, certainly.
And it's like there'll be plenty of opportunity, and we do have the seed swap event on October 29th, and we will be doing the demonstration there. And we can, I think maybe we can create some videos, like maybe we even get the mayor, Jason, to like do a video on like how to leave, like we just get him to just for like, you know, the celebrity status of the mayor doing it. But you know, get him to participate in one of the videos that we can post on like the sustainability Facebook and Instagram, and then in the neighborhood forums, just showing people like how easy it is to leaf mulch, you know, something along those lines. But
I feel like by saying this, I'm going to sort of throw a monkey wrench into things, and I wasn't able to come to the meeting last week, so that would have been a better time for me to give this input. But the document, which I think is that you shared, the 2-page document that we proposed, which I think is really good. I think that because we anticipate in future years to have more stringent elements of the ban, I feel like that needs to be in this document. I mean, just because I feel like otherwise we're introducing something this year and doing like, you know, or next year, whatever, and doing all this communication about it. And then suddenly it's going to be like, oh, well, and even in the document, we say, you know, we don't think this is too onerous to people because I'm sorry, I'm looking for the exact thing. Oh, like the last sentence of the first paragraph. Due to this, we believe a leaf blower restriction would not be an excessive burden. And when we do, you know, allude to the fact that there are obviously more stringent limitations in other municipalities, but I just feel like it's like we're kind of, I just feel like then if we do something, you know, 2 years later, which is okay, now you can't do this, but it's just like, it's just more adjustments that people have to make. And at least if they have sort of a heads up that we're going to get to something which is actually more like what other municipalities have, it actually, like, first of all, we're starting to educate them about like the more distant future, and it doesn't come as a surprise, and then we're not like kind of burdened with the task of launching a whole new sort of surprising thing. So really it's not changing what we would actually implement. It's just adding this kind of future plan into the what is presented to the trustees, and also what is communicated to landscapers and residents.
I actually think that's very good feedback. We had talked about that in terms of kind of phased in approach, but maybe that didn't make it into the final document. So maybe we should just edit the wording in terms of, you know, this, you know, the recommendation would be a staged approach, where a phase in approach, where ultimately, you know, several years from now, we would, you know, end up, you know, replacing leaf blowers with other environmentally friendly solutions, and just put in a sentence like that or something to the trustees, if that.
yeah, I can definitely add that as another part. Michael, I know you were raising your hand.
Right, but I mean, just sort of with the understanding, we're just making a recommendation to the board who may or may not now or in the future use what we're suggesting or do anything with this. So I guess the extent that there's the concern that we're misleading the public, or a few, it feels like, I mean, again, I don't disagree, but just keep it clear, we're just a few degrees removed from the public, and that what we propose to the board ultimately is just advisory. So I don't know, it seems like for us not to worry about if they're misleading or people be phased in. They may or may not be phased in, and it isn't really up to us.
Right, but I think the recommendation could say that it's the hope of the Sustainability Committee to, you know, this is our recommendation for legislation now. And it's the hope that over a period of time, the culture will change, education, that we'll be able to educate, right, the residents, and that the culture around, their lawn maintenance will change, and that, that we may get to a point, or that we would like to see us get to a point at some point in time where there isn't a need, let's say, for the, like, again, I would be cautious as well, because I don't think that you want to put something out there that looks like, you're going from A to Z, and people are going to freak out and say, no, we can't do that.
Right, but even if, I agree with you, even if we go from A to Z, our A to Z recommendation is non-binding, it doesn't.
Absolutely. But we could put that in, that the hope is that, that we would begin in conjunction with, them evaluating and taking a look at our recommendations for this legislation. Our hope that we would be able to start educating again about these alternatives and changing the culture. It really is a shift in culture, and changing the culture of the community to be more, however we want to word it, environmentally friendly, or to, again, have these alternate methods to deal with the fall leaves and with whatever else our leaf blowers are dealing with, that are friendly to the, friendlier to the environment. That's all. I think 1 or 2 sentences gets us there. Perhaps actually to what you're talking about, so that in the event that the board takes something up and they pass something, maybe in their legislation, they also mention something that this may be a step 1, or that other communities, may have gone further, whatever they want to do when they start tackling it.
Mhm. Yeah,
But at least we put it out there that, that's the direction,
right.
and that it may not be one piece of legislation that's the final, or one recommendation that this is the final and we never want to go beyond it. We just
Right.
communicate that somehow.
Okay, I can definitely word something and add that in there. So we are thinking like 3 years is what we're thinking, or is it longer? Is that just like, is that what other places have done? Do you know, Ashley? They've done.
I mean, Irvington was just one example, but they were the first municipality that I heard of that actually stopped picking up leaves. I don't know if they were the first with a ban. But I mean, I think most municipalities moved a lot more quickly than we are. So I wouldn't do it any longer than 3 years into the future. Yeah.
And do you know if the village owns those leaf trucks, the ones that like suck up the leaves? I know I've seen those. It's like a vacuum, like a leaf vacuum or something, right?
That's
Is
been
that
my guess. I think that's been my guess, which is why we've been like so committed to maintaining that process.
They probably do own them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll say this, which is, a lot, when I've brought this up, sometimes people say, oh, well, our leaves get brought to the leaf composting thing over by the airport, but I just still don't think that's like continuing to do something. It's more efficient to just keep the leaves on your lawn than to move them, have them like mulched up or composted and then brought them back. Like it just doesn't, that's not efficient.
okay?
I think it's going back to education. Honestly, we are going to try leaf mulching for the first time on our property. So, which isn't, but we had, a gardener previously where, I don't have one right now. My husband's doing it, but, I think people just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how it's going to
'cause
work when we try to do it, but we're going to try.
It's really just it's a different blade for the lawnmower. It's just one
Right.
that's more mulchy. So that's the professional
Right.
term, mulchy. Like, I don't know what else to call it, but yeah, like when I had, a prior landscaper who was a gas guy, I asked him to get the blade and he just bought the blade. He didn't have to get a new machine, or it really wasn't a big deal. And it really does look, you just really can't see the leaves when they're chopped up. So it's good.
Okay. Sounds like a good addition. Anything else?
Also, I just wanted to add that the Fall Fest is actually the 22nd of October,
Okay.
which my daughter just told me she's volunteering, and it's our parents' weekend. So I don't know how we're gonna figure that out, but that's my 2 cents.
Anything else that you guys, so I do want to mention, in the suggestions, I just very randomly set the fee as $75. It was just like off the top of my head. I was like, okay, what's the right fee? Because I know we didn't really discuss that. We discussed like not making it too high, but maybe also not making it like $20. So I was like, oh, let's do $75. So we can always change that. That was just something that I put in as like a placeholder. If we want to use it, we can use it. So
I thought that was fine for recommendation to the board. Again, they can make their determination and they, potentially know what else people can be fined for here in the village and what those fees are.
okay, great.
I think it sounds good too.
And again, during the first year, there would be no fine. So that would only be during the second year that they would get a fine for doing it. And I don't have anything to add about the leaves other than I will add the 3 years or however we want to do it, the suggestion to expand it, and then I'll send out the new document to everyone. And I guess then we can also ask if anybody wants to add anything else. At which point, I don't know if we would do an email vote, probably an email vote to push it forward through. I guess Greg could tell us what's possible on that, but I think that would be fine.
Email vote is fine.
Today
Again,
we have
it could be something very informal like that. You just do a quick email and then literally respond yay, nay.
Okay, so maybe what I can do is update it and then we can do some sort of email vote.
And Greg, what was the date that you needed it? You were hoping for to have this finalized by what date for the next trustee meeting?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, but the October 25th, which our next BOT meeting, it would just go on as a discussion item for the board. So Trustee Fisher and the other trustees can just start discussing it amongst themselves formally for the public. Again, but it's not a public hearing or anything, so it's just be a discussion that they'll start having.
Okay, but so we need our committee to say yay or nay long enough in advance of the 25th so you can get it on the agenda.
So,
And
but the Friday before. So the way the agendas work is that we publish them and we send them over to Westmore that Friday before the meeting. So let me just see what that Friday before the 25th is. So the 21st.
I think that's plenty of time. That's a little over a week. I think we don't need to change too much. I don't believe so. And I can very quickly add that last section that we wanted to add. And then I guess, Greg, would you be the one to send out an email to I guess proctor the vote or however we do that? Okay.
Again, I'll just do as I always do in terms of email all 10 of you. And then pretty much once you guys have a copy that you can mostly agree on, again, I'm not expecting you all 10 of you to agree on every single detail. But once we get to that point, then I'll be happy to say, just please respond yay or nay. And I do want to let everybody know here, I did reach out to a few of our HOAs. I reached out to the Arbors, I reached out to Doral, Kingfield, and the other one name that's the name is slipping my mind at the moment. It'll come to me later. But only the Arbors got back to me. They basically put me in touch, which I did contact their landscaper, and pretty much told me what originally when you and I had the meeting with the Landscaper Association themselves, pretty much said that it's just the technology that's hard for them to procure at the moment because of the cost. He said to do the Arbors, it would take, if they had batteries, about 10 to 12 packs, or sorry, 10 to 12 batteries. But what he did tell me, which is interesting, and I will follow up with him when he comes back, is that he's going to a conference next week over in Kentucky, and they have different vendors there. So he's going to check out to see if there's vendors that he has done business with in the past that have any new technology that's out there for and not just electric leaf blowers, but any other sorts of electric equipment, landscaper wise.
And again, I want them to understand too, the HOAs, that this suggestion doesn't give preference actually to electric versus gas. It's literally just the time of the year ban. So hopefully they will mulch the leaves, versus, because the time of the year when they wouldn't be able to blow is really when there aren't leaves on the ground. So they just don't need to blow. That's kind of the solution, because it would just be like grass clippings and things along those lines, which shouldn't need to be, you know, blown all over the place. And a lot of times it's dirt or whatever. So that's sort of what we're trying to, I think, more so mitigate with this, at least, you know, in the beginning.
Have you talked
think
to Talcott Woods? Talcott?
That one I did not have a chance to speak to.
Yeah, because they're, I forget, I think it's Luongo who might do their work, but anyway, they do a lot of blowing. So
I think
they should-
something,
And
sorry.
no, I was just going to say, they also, I think that when we proposed such things in the past, they were pretty vocal, like against these things. Like, I think they actually came to one of the other talks or hearings we had. So I would definitely give them a heads up. Sorry, I'm done.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just, as I'm listening to the discussion, I think something that we need to be cautious of is if this initial recommendation is just talking about time of year and day, when we don't want leaf blowers used. But if we're getting to a place where potentially we're talking about conversion from gas to electric, that's a different, you know, where do we want to get to versus a total ban on everything. So I think we have to be cautious if we're going to be at some point in time encouraging people to switch from gas to electric, and then we're going to turn around and ban them altogether.
Yeah.
Then you're asking people to incur the expense of upgrading or changing their machinery, and then telling them they can't use it at all. So I think that that's a consideration that we need to be very cautious. What really is the message? So, and I think that the trustees clearly, you know, where are we really going with this? Because those are very different things, and that's a huge risk. I mean, if you encourage people to switch.
I totally agree. I think there's just so many, and we sort of touched on this last meeting, but there's so many nuances to banning electric versus gas that to me, it just makes it way too complicated. It makes it way too complicated. It's hard to enforce. And also it's the expense. And again, you're telling people then you might phase it out anyways. It's just really confusing. Versus doing, you know, an all around, like, okay, it's just ban this time of year or whatever, making it more straightforward. I feel like, and even with talking to landscapers, it's just, there's negatives, there's downsides to the electric as well, you know, for a lot of people it's noise, so that doesn't really get solved with, you know, switching to electric. And also, like they like the Landscapers Association was telling us, a lot of the landscapers that use electric tools will then have a gas generator to power their charging setup that is actually using even more gas. So it's like, it's just, you know, and how do you ban all that stuff? How do you monitor that? So it's just, for me, it's too complicated right now. I think just keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think that's kind of where we got to, just because, and I think that's also why we went back and forth for so long, because I think trying to get people's minds around purchasing electric, they're like, no, it's too expensive. That's always the comment, is it's too expensive. This is prohibitive. So we're just eliminating that altogether and saying, okay, it's like this time of year. And if it happens to work out to where we're educating people, we know that people are leaf mulching, we notice that we're not having to pick up all these leaves and all that stuff, then we can say, okay, like we can just phase that out altogether. But I don't know that switching to electric only is going to actually be a solution, because I think it's just too hard to enforce. And to also suggest people buy things, I feel like that just makes people mad. They're like, well, I don't want to buy that. So, you know, especially expensive things. So it's better just to be like, nope, this is a very simple and easy rule to follow, especially when there aren't very many leaves on the ground. So
Sounds good, Bridget.
great. I will try to get the updated document out tomorrow, hopefully, so that everybody can read it again. But it'll just be, I'll just add a little paragraph to it about maybe expanding it over the years. Anything else? I think we've covered almost every aspect of leaves now. So we're all leaf experts. Okay, great.
But
And
I just
don't
want to
see-
ask like Trustee Fisher, again, what you're listening and what you had, I just want to hear, like, do you have any concerns from a trustee perspective?
I mean, it's going to be, I feel like, we have to really educate the residents about the ban, both everything, the ban, mulching. I feel like outreach and education is the best way, because then if you're going to pass some sort of code or, ruling, you don't want people to be like irate. So I really feel like outreach and education to the community is, should be on the forefront. Honestly, I mean, believe me, I'm all for a ban, but, I've talked to people and people are like, some people are for it. Some people are like, why? Why would you make things harder?
Well, that's why I just said, like, as you know, because when you were like head of this committee, before you were even a trustee, I was already talking about, like, every fall, could we please tell people about mulching? Could we please tell people about mulching?
I know.
And the onus is, and it was like, it's like maybe a little blurb in the Rybrook News. It didn't even make it in yet this season. So like the onus is on the village, because you guys like have, I'm not trying to be mean, but I suddenly heard my tone, but like, because the emails come from the village. So that is, and then granted, I know that there's limited number of, you don't have everybody's email also, but it has to be, like a Westmore News cover story, which also only reaches like this band of people. And that's why I do, like, Bridget had said, I think a mailer is going to have to go out, but like a lot of that is, stuff that our committee can recommend, but really has to be followed through.
Yeah. So, what, to that fact, send Chris a little blurb, like write something up.
I know, I've done it every year.
And does he put it, does it go in?
I get a little tired of having to do it every year. Yeah,
well,
but it's just,
what,
I think
Ashley,
it's like item 5. It's like item 5 at the bottom of the email. So I don't think it's been very effective or at all effective.
Okay. You know what? Let's send one and CC me, and I'll say, Chris, can this be, sort of upfront and visual?
I mean,
Yeah,
I can just do the whole email. Like we could have a whole email about it. I'm sure I've drafted them. I can find them, and it links to like the, the Healthy Yard, the Love
Well,
and
we
Leave
don't,
'em
I feel like we
website.
can't give too much information. It's got to be.
Right, but it doesn't have to be. It just like it links to like the Love 'em and Leave 'em website with information for people to give to their landscapers, because that website has a whole section just for landscapers in English and in Spanish. So yeah.
I have another question. Do you think the message would be more relevant, more impactful is the word, if it was actually tied to climate change? And, because there is a lot of concern in our community about climate change. So if it comes across not, I mean, I understand all the healthy yards and everything, but if it really comes across is, here's something you can do, right? That's easy on your own property to help mitigate the effects of climate change, which we are all feeling in our community. Perhaps it may have more impact if we start tying it into that. I think I don't want to speak for everybody in our community, but I sense that there are plenty of people in our community who are concerned about climate change as opposed to denying that it exists. So that might just help make it a little bit more impactful.
Yeah, I mean, it could be really easy in the email. You just have a bulleted list of these are the pros, like, reduces climate change, reduces, carbon output into the air, reduces the need for fertilizers, helps pollinators. Like it's just, those 4 things in bullets could be really easy to digest.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say is that, so I can always ask our administrator to give it its own individual
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, rather than just sticking it at the bottom, because again, just being completely honest, you're kind of right that if it's at the bottom out of 5, I mean, most people aren't going to read it. So again, I can always ask him if we can just have its own individual, especially if I tell him that it's going to in relation to promoting
Mhm.
legislation. Because I think that anytime you have a law of any sort, whether it be a local law, state law, or federal law, even though of course this is obviously way above my pay grade or anybody's pay grade on the call right here, but public education has to be a part of any of that, so people understand what's in it. And they at least have an alternative to what is now what we're facing, or at least we're hoping will be phased out in the future.
Ashley, would you take a stab? Do you have time to take a
Yeah.
stab at writing that again? And then if it goes to Greg and Greg asks for a, unique email to go out, it could be headlined this fall, we're leaves haven't started falling. They're just about to start fall. Try something new in your yard this fall. Here's
Yeah,
why.
I already found one of my old.
You already have
emails, so-
it.
Yeah, it's like,
Hopefully not from 10 years ago, but
yeah,
thank you.
I mean, I can swing the bike, Chris. I'm sure it's not going to be an issue. Giving it its own standalone, so that way the attention is all just on that itself. So people, whoever gets it, our residents, they can read it and can fully digest it.
No, that's great. And the timing is now. I mean, this is perfect
Yes.
timing because
We're
we're
right, yeah,
almost there and it's time to actually incorporate into the season.
Yeah. Great. No, those are all great suggestions and important ones. Anything else? I think that was the last thing on our agenda, so.
Yeah, this is anything else that anybody wants to raise.
Perfect.
Okay, then, yep. Well, then, thank you to all of you on this call and to the public who'll be watching this later. Again, we'll see you at our next meeting, November 1st.
thank you.